Hello everyone and welcome to Zero Systems webinar on tokenized climate solutions. The key takeaways from this session will be understanding of the current climate situation and Zero Systems' role within it, the role of carbon credits and their tokenized future, the need for carbon registry modernization, the potential for energy decentralization, and the necessity of blockchain technology. So firstly, I'm going to introduce Zero Citizen. So we are an innovative climate tech company founded in the UK in 2022. And we were founded to empower the masses to tackle climate change, essentially. We're split into two divisions where we focus on carbon management solutions and clean energy solutions for the masses. And ultimately want to become a hub, a communal hub for all things net zero. The market gap that we've identified is that the existing solutions out there are very archaic, and this has resulted in a lack of net zero adoption. And the team's USP is that we're able to produce innovative hardware and software solutions through our own product development. So the core team is myself, Ben Bonner, the CEO and co-founder of Zero Citizen. I have 6+ years background in product development, 14 years electrical and avionics engineering, of which 13 was in the Royal Air Force. And my key responsibilities are managing the team, resources, risks, and strategy. And with me today is also Thomas Langlois, our other co-founder and CTO. He has over 20 years software engineering and architecture experience. He's also delivered the business intelligence API platform within Cardano, named Cardano BI. And his key responsibilities are managing the development and delivery of all the software side of Zero Citizen. We also have Jem Dervish as well, our CCO, an experienced professional with over 20+ years in education and 5 years in blockchain. And his responsibilities is managing the community and its development, both internal and external to Web3. Now, first I want to touch on, of course, why Zero Citizen exists. Global warming and greenhouse gas concentrations are at the highest levels in 2 million years and rising. Now, before I continue, I'm just going to play this GIF, which shows the global average temperature increase since 1880. Now, the Earth is 1.1 degrees C warmer than it was in the 1800s, so pre-industrial revolution. And the 2015 Paris Agreement central aims was to keep the global average temperature rise below 2 degrees C compared to pre-industrial levels, and ideally limit that to 1.5 degrees C. Now, this GIF that I'm playing here shows, as I mentioned, the global average temperature increase, and it's fairly stable as we've seen for the last 100 or so years. But as we get to the 1990s and now to the 2000s, you start to see it spiral a bit more sporadically, a bit more out of control, and especially so as we get towards the 2020s. Now, you're going to see a 3D version of this just now, and you can see by the bottom half, like I said, it's fairly stable, fairly consistent. As we got towards the 1990s, 2000s, and even 2020s, that temperature increase is quite sharply spiraled out of control, as we see. Looking at the image on the right, that shows the CO2 parts per million. And over the last 800,000 years, this never exceeded 300 parts per million. In 1911, it reached that level again. And within just 100 odd years, we're now at 420 parts per million. So almost 1.5 times increase there. And so the main effects of global warming are the extreme weather events that we're seeing more often and more frequently in the news, such as droughts and the subsequent famines that we see, extreme storms and more frequent storms, and heat waves, which often results in forest fires as well. We're also seeing rise in sea levels as well, and this is in part through melting glaciers, which have a twofold effect. So as the white sheets of ice disappear, their ability to reflect the sun's energy from back out to the atmosphere goes away, and also the expansion of seawater contributes to the rise in sea levels as well. And this in turn is endangering wildlife. As I mentioned, the more environments are becoming uninhabitable, more forest fires are displacing wildlife, and that too is the case for for people as well. And climate security is a big thing. We're seeing more refugees, and we'll continue to see more refugees as more lands become uninhabitable and resources become more scarce that are taken for granted today, such as water. Now, the reason why Zero Citizen chose Cardano is the key sustainability elements of it. So the proof of stake mechanism is around 99.8% more energy efficient than the proof of work that we see on the likes of Bitcoin. Cardano fundamentally was built in a sustainable and scalable way as well. So it's very much built for the future. And it ticks off many UN SDG goals with the companies that are within it, such as Veritree and ourselves focusing on climate change, the UNHCR focused on refugees, for example. It was given an ESG rating of A as well recently from Green Crypto Research, and Sustainable Aid have also done quite a good amount on the ESG side of Cardano, so it's worth taking a look at them. And there are also a bunch of carbon neutral state pools as well, with a good group called Climate Neutral Cardano that's worth taking a look at. So in terms of Zero Citizen's blockchain assets, we currently have 2,050 Zero Citizen NFTs, of which 500 have already been minted. And these will provide access to the Citizens Club, which provide discounts and early access to all Zero Citizen products and services. And this includes the fractionalized renewable energy assets, which I'll touch on very shortly. We are looking at utilizing these as a form of carbon credit storage as well in the future that will utilize CIP68. We are also launching our own token as well, so the Zero Citizen token, which we're launching next year. And the planned utility for this, as I mentioned, is it be able to purchase solar PV fractions, EV charger fractions, tokenized carbon credits, and pay to offset your carbon footprints. And it will also be used as a form of governance as well. Also looking ahead, like I mentioned, we'll be delivering fractionalized renewable energy assets, which I'll touch on soon, fractionalized EV chargers, and again, touching that very soon. And also, we'll be utilizing ADA handles as upcoming virtual subhandles as part of our on-chain carbon neutral certification as well. So the traction we've gained so far is that we are currently working with a multi-million-pound brewery in the UK to provide our suite of carbon management solutions. A registered member with the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment, or IEMA, and a registered member with Vera, where we obtain our carbon credits. We have our bespoke carbon offset solution called the Carbon Balance Service, where individuals and businesses can calculate and subsequently offset their carbon footprints with carbon credits. In terms of social media, we've organically gained 3,000 Twitter followers and over 3,300 Discord members. So looking at the tokenized climate solutions and in particular carbon credits. Now, for those that aren't aware, one carbon credit is equivalent to 1 ton or 1,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. And these carbon credits are derived from projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And this can be through avoidance, so the use of solar farms, for example, to provide renewable energy as opposed to burning fossil fuels. This can be synthetic carbon capture, which is often used in the manufacturing process, or carbon sequestration, which is the natural capture of CO2 through the likes of trees, seagrass, etc. And these carbon credits can be used to offset against greenhouse gas emissions, and ultimately companies can achieve carbon neutrality this way. However, we do not believe that it should be used as a license to pollute. So we are very much of the belief that companies reduce their emissions as much as feasibly possible, and then any residual emissions are then offset with carbon credits to achieve net zero. And these carbon credits are managed by carbon registries, and the two main ones are Vera and Gold Standard. Now, looking ahead, tokenized carbon credits are the future in our eyes. These carbon credits now become liquid assets, so they are tradable within the blockchain. Currently, with a very centralized way in which these platforms operate, you can only transfer between yourselves using that set platform. These carbon credits will have a finite quantity, so there'll be a finite amount of NFTs that can be minted as part of that project. We'll also utilize smart contracts, which is obviously a form of trustless payments. Now, the current way in which these carbon credits are traded is that you have to find an email of a carbon credit provider. You have to then email them, asking them how many carbon credits they have left, if any, and what price they'll sell you them for, and then strike up a deal away from the registry, which leaves an element of trust there. Obviously, smart contracts takes that away. The NFTs will all have metadata as well that are back to the originating project from which they were derived. And of course, a ledger of support and documentation can then be submitted to the blockchain for anyone to look up at any time. There'll also be smart contracts implemented for the on-ramp for the carbon credits. So this is minting the carbon credits from the registry. And also an off-ramp. So once these carbon credits have been used to offset the carbon footprint, they can then be sent to a burn wallet. And we believe a dedicated marketplace is necessary for this, and we'll touch on that and why very shortly. So in terms of the carbon offset and projections, on the left-hand side, we can see the demand, the fundamental demand versus behavioral demand. So currently, a lot of the carbon credits that get sold are based on behavioral demand. So this is companies that are purchasing carbon credits, offsetting their carbon footprints for that competitive advantage over their peers, so they can claim carbon neutrality. But going forward, sort of from here on in, we're going to see more and more companies reducing their footprints as much as feasibly possible, and then using carbon credits to offset those residual emissions, which is where we see the fundamental demand taking over. On the right-hand side, you can see the carbon offset prices projection. So right now in 2023, carbon credits are going for anywhere between $5 and $15. But going forward, the projection is that the higher quality carbon credits could be worth up to $40, and that's around 2038, 2040 mark. So some people will be investing in carbon credits as a long-term investment. So carbon neutrality, why bother? Well, there's the obvious environmental benefits of mitigating climate change fundamentally, but there are also economic benefits as well. So by purchasing more efficient equipment and using more efficient processes, not only can you reduce the amount of CO2 being emitted, but you can also impact your balance sheet and save money as well. The stakeholder expectations. So not only will clients start expecting companies that they work with to become more environmentally friendly and work towards carbon neutrality, but also staff are becoming more and more bothered about what their companies are doing as well. And there's also an investor requirement. So investors are more and more looking at companies being sustainable going forward and having something in place where they're working towards net zero or net zero, and often requiring a carbon reduction plan or something. And this is definitely the case for government contracts as well. So for the UK, if you are to bid on any government contract, you need to have a carbon reduction plan and an environmental policy in place before you can bid, else you won't be even looked at. And there'll be zero citizen benefits as well. So we'll be offering business-to-business networking and marketing, as well as on-chain benefits as well through some of our partners. And as mentioned, we do offer carbon management solutions, and this includes our carbon balance service, where individuals and businesses can calculate their carbon footprint and then offset it with carbon credits to become certified as carbon neutral. Develop carbon reduction plans as well. So this is working with companies to calculate and report their current emissions, and then work with them towards achieving net zero by 2050 or earlier if they so choose. We develop environmental management systems for companies, including manuals to make sure that all their policies are okay. They're ticking off all the regulatory boxes. Any environmental emergency procedures are all in place. And also environmental policies. So this is the public declaration from companies of their commitment towards environmental responsibility and sustainability. And as I mentioned, we are now working with a multi-million-pound brewery as our inaugural client for this. So looking at carbon registries. Now, the existing solutions out there, like I said, we have the likes of Vera and Gold Standards. Now, the pros to these is that they are all in one place. So it's you'd have to search for different sites. And there are supporting documents out there, although they are within layers. You do have to try and find them. Now, the cons to these current systems, the current carbon registries, is that there's a very poor user interface and user experience. It's very sort of archaic in the way in which they've been done and built, and the software that it's built on. It's high cost as well. So for just a basic account, you're looking at $500 per year minimum. There's, like I mentioned before, there's no mechanism to trade directly. So you have to find an email the carbon project, see how many credits they've got left, what price, etc. And as part of this, you're unable to see directly how much carbon credits is remaining. There's also a bit of a lack of transparency within there as well. And like I said, you have to sort of delve in and sort of dig in to try and find some of the information. And like I said, the centralization side of it is a negative. Now, some of the big issues with the current carbon registries is they have a lot of bad publicity lately. Now, the article on the right states that more than 90% of rainforest carbon offsets by Verra were certified as, were deemed worthless. And what's more, there's also been allegations of phantom projects, so projects not even existing, but they were still certified, and carbon credits were able to be sold from these projects. And this in turn is leading to this. So some major companies such as Shell, Total, BP, big oil and gas companies are now doing their own thing and doing their own carbon offsetting, which is unregulated. It's not using a third party. They're going through their own methodologies, which obviously has its flaws. Also companies such as GlaxoSmithKline. And this has also led to Shell sort of taking a step back from their plan to radically reduce their carbon footprint. So yeah, the big issue from this. As I mentioned, for the cost, this is a big hurdle, and something that's preventing companies from using Verra is it's quite pricey. So all accounts have a minimum $500 annual fee. The initial project registration for companies is up to $10,000 as well. Now, the methodologies, to register a new methodology, a new way of reducing greenhouse gas, looking at $15,000, and the existing methodology is $7,500. And then the initial and annual verification is $2,500. In total, we're looking at around $20,000 minimum, assuming full 10K registration fees, and that's just if they're using existing methodologies. Zero Citizen, all in all, we think we can do things a lot better, a lot cheaper. Start by not having a paywall, so all accounts are free, and do everything a lot cheaper, apart from the initial verification where it could be up to $4,300, so that covers off travel and subsistence, so that we can go out and actually witness these projects doing as they said they're doing, and that they are actually reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And all in all, we think we can do this for around $6,800, again assuming existing methodologies are used there. And as I mentioned before, we believe a dedicated carbon marketplace is required for all this, and the big reason for this is to enable non-blockchain users to easily find this carbon credits. There's some great secondary market places out there like JPEG Store, but the issue is we don't want people having to trawl through different projects to find us. We need to be able to sort of find us and purchase carbon credits straight away. It needs to have a simple user interface and user experience, again, so that non-blockchain natives are familiar with that Web 2 feel, the usual feel that they get from platforms. And almost to an extent where they don't even realize that they're using blockchain technology. That's the sort of effect that we're after. And again, these will use smart contracts, including for the on-ramp, so the minting process, and the off-ramp, so sending the NFTs to a burn wallet. And this will all form part of the Zero Citizen platform. So looking at decentralizing energy now, and taking a look at solar photovoltaics, or PVs. And the Earth receives enough energy from the sun in 1 hour to power the whole Earth annually. Now, solar PVs convert sunlight to electrical energy, and if the electricity is not used straight away, it can either be stored in a battery or sold to the grid. In the UK, you require a home energy management system and a smart export guarantee license to do this. Now, one of the big problems preventing residential adoption of solar PV systems, and in particular apartment blocks, is affordability. So we're looking at around £2,400 just to kit out a flat, an apartment. So that's already quite a significant hurdle. ownership suitability. So many people within apartments don't own the apartments themselves, and so investing in for the long term isn't an option for them. And even if they do own their own apartments, the apartment might not receive enough sunlight during the day to warrant installing a solar panel on the balcony. So there's big issues around ownership suitability. For management, there could be a bit more elderly, so they can't look after the panels, so that could prevent adoption there. And also energy storage. If they're not going to use the electricity straight away, they could face significant costs for installing their own batteries there. So the solution is, for us, fractionalized renewable energy assets, or FREER for short. And this is a zero-cost entry point for apartment block owners to install solar panels and provide cheap electricity for the residents. So the way this works is that we'll install solar panels onto apartment blocks. We'll then fractionalize these solar panels into multiple fractions and prioritize apartment block residents and owners to purchase up to 90% of these fractions. And then anything left over will be made available to the public to purchase. Zero Citizen will retain 5%, and we'll also gift 5% of these fractions to the apartment block owners for working with us. So the electricity from these solar panels will be supplied directly to the residents at a much more affordable price compared to typical utility companies. And what's more, they can still keep their existing utility suppliers. Now, what this does is remove the 100% reliance on these centralized utility companies. And this enables us to work towards energy decentralization and providing electricity at the point of use. And this utilizes our sharing economy model. So all owners of the solar PV fractions will be rewarded based on the electricity sold. And this is estimated to be between 11 and 12% annual yield. But taking that one step further, we want to transform these apartment blocks into sustainable hubs. So not only do we want to install the solar panels, but we also want to install EV chargers as well for apartment blocks, and we'll use renewable energy to power these where possible. So essentially, residents can charge their electric vehicles at a much more affordable price compared to other public chargers out there. And again, it's going to utilize the same sharing economy. So all the fraction owners will be rewarded based on the electricity sold. And again, an estimated annual yield of around 12 to 13%. So as you can see here, this is a mock-up of the Zero Citizen FREER platform. On the left is the dashboard whereby fraction owners can see the performance of their solar panels, and also the earnings which they've received from these assets. And on the right hand side, you can see all the different apartments by which you'll be able to purchase fractions for. And the revenue streams for this is for all EV chargers and solar PVs, Zero Citizen will have a 20% markup from our initial investment. Beyond that, we'll take a 10% service fee for all the electricity sold before we then distribute that to all the fraction owners. And as mentioned, we'll retain 5% of all the assets that we install as well. And then we are looking at fractionalization as a service going forward. So, and we'll offer that to non-competing companies where we don't intend to have a footprint. So the vision, phase one is installing the EV chargers and the solar PVs for apartment blocks, and that's starting in the UK for the initial proof of concept. Phase two is the development of solar EV parks, which I'll touch on very, very shortly, and the launch of our carbon registry, and subsequently our carbon credits, named the carbon action credits. And then phase three is when we'll start to look at the fractionalization as a service. Now, solar PV parks, as I mentioned, it's not too far away from the apartment blocks side of things, what we're looking at. But this combines car parking with EV charging, and all powered by solar PVs. And we see significant potential for this with commercial properties, and supermarkets are an ideal sort of obvious candidate for this as well. And the key thing for us, and the way that Zero Citizen will operate, is that we won't measure ourselves or the companies we work with by the financial side of things and just by profit alone. We want to work towards this philosophy of a triple bottom line. So that's focusing on people, planet, and profit. So not only looking at the financial performance side of things, but also measuring the social and environmental impact as well. So it's very much a holistic, like long-term sustainable approach that we're taking here. And it really does shape the company and its values and its decisions going forward as well. I'm now going to pass you over to Thomas Langlois, who is going to talk about the blockchain integration side of things.
Cheers, Ben. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm Thomas Langlois. I'm Zero Citizen CTO. So why is blockchain important to enable Zero Citizen's vision? This is the question I'll try to answer in the following minutes. To that end, we'll first touch on tokenized real-world assets before moving on to Zero Citizen's, I would say, software implementation plans. So tokenized real-world assets, or tokenized RWAs, what are they? Well, they're essentially programmable containers of information, meaning they can be enriched with all of the information and business logic that users, institutions, or regulators require in order to interact with their underlying assets. And that represents a paradigm shift compared to, I would say, traditional assets. Now, how does this paradigm shift materialize? Well, it materializes with three important properties that those assets bring to the table. The first property is that they eliminate the information asymmetry, which is essentially the norm in existing markets, especially financial markets, where the information about traditional electronic assets, for instance, is not equally accessible or available to all participants. And this, unfortunately, creates an unequal distribution of information, which can create an imbalance in the market and potentially leading to advantages for those with superior information quality and disadvantages for those with lesser information. And that results in essentially a class system, either you're in or you're out. The second important properties of tokenized real-world assets is that they enable a more proactive business management. How do they do that? Well, by nature, those assets are programmable, right? Thanks to their underlying smart contract, which are essentially, self-executing contracts with the actual contract terms of the agreement written as code. And this enables the overall streamlining of business operations, business processes and their related automations, and it reduces, more importantly, the number of intermediaries, enabling a shift from a reactive business decision-making to a more proactive one. A prime example of this, if you're wondering why I'm so meta about this, is lies into the 2000 financial crisis. And those assets, which blew up the world economy, were the opposites of being transparent. They had information asymmetries all over them. And at the end of the day, the general public, through different investment vehicles, were kept blind until those in the know who had access to the real information were able to unload those assets before the actual rating agencies were adjusting the rating and thus the pricing of those assets. And that's exactly what tokenized real-world assets aim at solving, this underlying asymmetry and pushing for a more proactive business management and a more fair business management of those assets. The third and last property I wanted to touch on with regards to tokenized real-world assets lies in its interoperability. Those assets can really travel across blockchains whilst maintaining their up-to-date state, allowing thus market participants to use those assets in different business contexts. And that is key when you realize that there will be hundreds to, well, potentially thousands of different blockchain networks in the future, particularly if there is, specialization of those blockchains around catering to specific asset classes, for instance, or geographies and jurisdiction. So it's very important as business founders to leverage the interoperability of those assets to enable future business value chains, for instance. So tomorrow you may purchase a tokenized renewable energy projects on the Zero Citizen Freya platform, and you realize that you can get a loan using those assets, and that's where this interoperability is very important. And Ben and I, we make sure that is a key requirement in our development. All right, so that was the first point I wanted to make with regards to tokenized real world asset, because they are the key reason for Zero Citizen to build using blockchain. And I'm going to move to our target architecture. So don't worry, I'm not going to, Ben, over the page, thank you. I'm not going to go into too many details. I'll skim the surface. We won't get technical. We'll just stick to the more business side of things. So the target architecture that you're looking at now is essentially Zero Citizen's blueprint for our incoming software implementation. It's our North Star, if you wish. It features multiple layers. So starting from the top, you can see our end users, from renewable energy projects to external carbon registries, to green asset managers, regulators, governmental agencies, and lastly, investors. And all these actors have in common to use Freya, our Zero Citizen platform, to access Zero Citizen services and interact with Zero Citizen powered assets. So in the subsequent layer, the engagement capability layer that follows, one can see all capabilities that will enable user engagement with our platform. So channels management, for instance, will cater with the methods by which end users will interact with our platform, namely screens and APIs. The customer experience and journeys will strive to give our end users the best in-class user experience possible, especially for renewable energy projects and investors who will be our primary users. The customer centricity will see to streamline all aspects of the customer lifecycle management, including sales and marketing. These engagement capabilities all rely on a transversal customer identity and access management capability to enforce, the highest security possible to our end users. Moving on, we see the business capability layer that follows. You'll find there all foundational business capabilities that power our services, our core services. First, the registration and certification capabilities will enable us to onboard new renewable energy projects on the platform. The fractionalization capability will enable the tokenization of real-world assets managed by the onboarded renewable energy projects. The marketplace capability will enable investors to buy tokenized assets, and in doing so, acquire a fractionalized representative ownership in the underlying renewable energy projects. The vault capability will allow our asset holders to stake their assets to earn rewards and increase the yield of their investments. The reporting capability is very important. It will enable asset performance reporting to investors. It will also enable certification visualization to renewable energy projects. And last but not least, it will allow regulatory reports to regulators and governmental agencies alike. And obviously, all these business capabilities, these core business capabilities, rely in turn on the data services layer. And noteworthy data capabilities are first, the renewable energy assets themselves will hold on-chain all necessary metadata to represent a given renewable energy project. The representative ownership will hold on-chain all necessary metadata to represent a fractionalized representative ownership in a given project. And last but not least, the staking and reward smart contracts will manage autonomously the distribution of the tokenized real-world asset rewards to its token holders. Finally, at the very bottom, you can see the enablement capabilities layer. This will offer infrastructure resources to power both, our Web 2 and our Web 3 components to enable the parent layers that we've just described. So this is in a nutshell, without going in too much details, our target architecture, our North Star. I think I'm going to close. We can go over the page. I don't even remember what we have after this. Yeah, I'm just going to skip this. It's just the user journey to I would say, stake a token and get reward. And the last slide, I'll just leave you with this one. This is a more detailed view of our, I would say, solution implementation with the actual IT component. So I'm going to spare you that level of detail, but it's just to showcase that we are fairly mature in terms of the thought process and how we're going to implement those plans and reach, that vision that Ben showed you earlier. And that's it from me. Thank you very much. Ben, over to you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So I do have a few questions that have been put to us. So how does the first question is, how does the current regulatory environment affect your blockchain initiative, especially from country to country? And this is, definitely something that we are looking at in terms of, like I said, we are established in the UK, but we are looking at our options in terms of where we set up certain parts of Zero Citizen, including like the DAO element. We'll have a DAO element that manages the philanthropical side of Zero Citizen and where we invest money philanthropically, and also for the token side of things as well, the DAO for that. So we are looking at all the options available to us. There's numerous out there, I won't know them all, but it is a challenge at the minute for us. Next one is, how does your proof of stake mechanism in Cardano contribute to sustainability, and what makes it a preferable choice for environmental initiatives? As I mentioned, the proof of stake mechanism is 99.8% more energy efficient than proof of work. There's an infamous news article broke a couple of years ago that the amount of energy consumed to mine Bitcoin exceeded that of Argentina's the whole country, which is staggering. So that's why we chose Cardano. Looked at Cardano initially, but obviously the way in which Cardano is been developed in a peer-reviewed way, and the sustainable growth side of things is the obvious answer to that as well. Next one is, are you working with or open to working with any companies based here in the States? We are not currently, but we are definitely open to working with companies within the States. We're open to collaborations altogether, absolutely. So we welcome any messages. As you can see on the slide at the minute, we have our website there, zerocitizen.io, email inquiries at zerocitizen.io, and also our Twitter page, which you can message us directly as well at zerocitizen_io. I think we're able to take one more question. I'll take two more. Sorry, I'll take two more. What are the biggest hurdles you face when reaching out to traditional industries for the adoption of your solution of carbon credits? So I mean, I'll say it as a blanket statement for when we've reached out to people and said that we utilize in blockchain technology, is that in general, those that aren't blockchain savvy, those that aren't, that understand the underlying infrastructure and the way in which it works, there's a lot of negative connotations for blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and people automatically associate Bitcoin to scam artists and drug dealers, and it's just, we all know that's very much not the case, but there's a lot of negative connotations. And that's, again, why with our platform, we want to make it as seamless as possible and try and reduce the amount of literature that we use that surrounds the terms of blockchain and NFTs and such, because there is there are those negative connotations, and we want to make it, like I said, seamless, that they don't even realize they're using blockchain technology. But for those that are interested and those that do want to know, we'll have plenty of documentation that shows how the underlying principles worked. And again, as Thomas pointed out, there's a lot to it. I can take one more.
Want me to take the top one?
Yes, go on then, please, Thomas. Yeah.
Sure. How do your solution ensure interoperability with existing climate and energy management systems? So our entire solution is API based. So we favor an interoperability with, I would say, those centralized external systems via APIs. And as I alluded to, going forward, on a more Web3 perspective, we want our assets to be multi-chain or blockchain agnostic. So we'll make sure that although we will be starting on Cardano, that we are able to bridge those those assets across chains. So it's too early to say which chain we'll go to next, but we'll start on Cardano, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And in terms of the solar panels and that side of things, there is some hardware integration as well. So there is some innovative hardware that's being introduced there that manages the output from the solar panels to the battery, and then the dissemination from the battery to all the different apartments. That's some unique hardware technology innovation that we have developed within the team as well. So hopefully that answers the question. As I mentioned, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you want to get in touch, we are open to collaborations and talks investment, all that sort of stuff. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much for listening, for watching. Like I said, we welcome all messages, and we hope that everyone has a great Christmas and New Year, and all the best for all the best for 2024. Thank you.